Hello and welcome to Diminishing Returns. And this week is the first in a three-parter where we'll be looking at what is commonly known as the Cornetto trilogy. Is that what you would call it, Sol?
Yeah. Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, Blood and Ice Cream trilogy.
Yeah, it's the first three feature films of Edgar Wright, proper feature films.
He did something called A Fistful of Fingers, was his debut.
I'm not counting that,
which
as
was
it
more
was
of
not released.
Well, BAFTA counted it. That's why he wasn't up for the outstanding debut or whatever it's called.
Oh, fair enough.
I mean, it is a feature film. If you've seen A Fistful of Fingers, it is out there now. Finally, it's kind of made its way online, but it's very much of the Cannibal the Musical level of filmmaking. And then I believe Scott Pilgrim was between Hot Fuzz and The World's End. There might have been another film in there.
But anyone who's not clear, we're doing Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz and The World's End, which are all Edgar Wright films and all co-created with Simon Pegg. Is that right? Did he co-write them all?
Yeah, the two of them wrote all three.
Well, the reason we're doing these films is because we asked our Patreons, who only pay just $1 a month to get all their extra material, and also they get to vote on what films we do in the future, some of them. And this was one we had a few weeks, a gap of a few weeks. We said, what do you want to see? They said these films, and I understand why. Good films, mostly.
Yeah, we've had numerous requests for these films before doing the Patreon thing, so it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. If you, the listener, would like to join our Patreon, go to patreon.com/dimreturns. And yes, it is just $1 a month. That's not even £1, is it? I don't know. Something around that. And
it's about 75p, I think.
We put out diminisodes, which are usually just extra bits of us talking.
Yeah, we got a shitload recorded that need editing and uploading, but they are coming.
And we mostly they're reviews of new films. So if we're looking at a film, for example, we recently, a couple of weeks ago, we did The Lion King. And then we went and see the new Lion King and we reviewed it on a Diminisode. And so you can get a much more up-to-date response from that. So that's what Patreon will get you for $1 a month. So go and join us and help us pay our bills. Okay, so on to the actual film. So this week we're just concentrating on Shaun of the Dead. And I think it's going to be a tough one for us this week, Sol, because I think we both absolutely love this film. And
do we?
Yeah. I'm not sure. Usually when you love something, I'll try and be a dissenting voice, but I can't do it here because there's nothing to dissent.
Well, I knew you were a fan, but I thought you'd be able to come in with a few complaints. I have one complaint.
Really? Well, I've just rewatched it, and it's the first time I've watched it in a few years, probably, but I've seen it it a few times. And I was kind of waiting to see something where I was like, okay, this doesn't quite hold up. I was like, no, okay, let's not bury the lead here. I think this might be the perfect film.
Well, yeah, I think...
And I'm not saying it's my favourite film on a personal level, but in terms of just pure filmmaking, yeah, I do enjoy it on a personal level as well. But in terms of filmmaking, the art and the craft, this is a fantastic piece of work.
I love this film. I always have. I haven't watched it in probably about 3 or 4 years at this point. I think last time I watched it was part of a big marathon of all 3 films back to back, and I got cornettos of every flavour to go with them and everything.
How many cornettos did you get through in the hour and a half run time?
I think I ate all of them.
Well, all the cornettos in the world?
That was 3 boxes of 4.
You fat bastard.
You don't... No, I think I had one of each, I think.
They're smaller than they used to be, though.
Yeah. But that's 3 cornettos over 4.5 hours? That's not that bad. Is it?
No, it's not.
I was in a relationship at the time, so
So you're allowed to get fat.
Yeah. It's basically, this is probably the film I've seen the most out of every film in the world. I might have seen this film about 50 times. This is the most approaching Calvin levels of film watching.
50? Really? And what?
Maybe.
How?
I don't think... Well, when I was 14... I got the DVD and I didn't have a lot of pocket money and to go and buy stuff. And I watched that DVD countless times. There's about 20 commentary tracks on the DVD, so if you count each of those as a separate viewing. And I remember making a real point of, like, it got to a point where I just put it on for background noise a lot of the time when I was doing other things. And it is a film that I revisit every few years now. But I think I probably logged a solid, 30, 40 viewings when I was really young. And now it's just become, like, once every few years. But basically, what I was building to is I really was I did that classic thing that I do a lot on the show where I'm dreading rewatching it because it's like, oh, I've seen that film so many times. I don't know if I can bear sitting through it again as much as I love it. 2 seconds in, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really was just bowled over by how bordering on perfection it is. It is an intensely well-written and an intensely well-directed film, and it's rare you get both of those things in the same package. And beyond that, it is intensely dense. There is so much going on at any given moment in this film. I think that's how I've managed to rewatch it so many times.
It is. Well, funnily enough, when I was watching it, I thought to myself, you could watch this 50 times and still be missing bits. So I guess we'll test that with you. But yeah, it's like every line of dialogue, every prop in the background is there on purpose. It's saying something. Yeah. It's going to pay off later. Every bit of music that's chosen is
angle.
Yeah. And it's not, and it's kind of experimental in terms of its camera movement. And not experimental is a bit strong, but it's certainly adventurous with it. It's not afraid to do things that will pull you out of the film, even. But it's completely in control of what it's doing.
Yeah.
So let's start with Spaced.
Okay.
So Spaced was a sitcom where Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg, I presume they worked together before that and then worked together to do that show. But I presume they met really know. Previously.
Edgar Wright was a standard British comedy director pre-Spaced, and he was an insanely young director. He's a real kind of wunderkind story. He directed the French and Saunders Christmas special that he did when he was like in his early 20s. It's ridiculous. It was a different time, wasn't it, Alan?
Not that different. we just failed in our careers, so accept it.
I found it really upsetting, actually, to rewatch this film and discover that Shaun is 29 years old.
Was Simon Pegg 29? May have been skimming a few years off.
Yeah. I've still got the better part of a year before I'm Mark's age at the start of Peep Show.
So I'm not sure exactly how Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg met, but
Edgar Wright, I believe, did something called Mash and Peas. I think that was his first significant directing credit, which was a Matt Lucas, David Walliams project on like British Comedy Central or some other godforsaken little thing that no one was watching. I mean, if you want to go way, way, way back, Edgar Wright worked on, I believe, Beadle's About, or it was some kind of Jeremy Beadle, You've Been Framed type thing. And it was just a real free-for-all. And I think he was like a video researcher, but it was such a just, whatever, go pick up a camera, film a little insert for this thing. So basically he got to start directing segments for TV whilst working at the show. Then he got access to all of the editing equipment, things like that, and was able to kind of focus on his own little projects. Made this little intensely independent project called A Fistful of Fingers, which was a spoof western, and then I think off the back of that started getting proper TV directing gigs. So yeah, he did the Matt Lucas, David Walliams one, which I think was his introduction to the likes of Simon Pegg, because he was part of that Matt Lucas, David Walliams crowd. Yeah. There were a few other shows here and there, but basically they landed together on Spaced, and I think it was just, oh, this is a good director, he's good at comedy. Spaced was Simon Pegg and Jessica Hines, then Stevenson, who were writing that. And although Edgar Wright did contribute the odd gag and was definitely quite involved creatively, he was very much the director, not the writer. So it's interesting how closely tied Spaced is, I think, to these three films. To say Jessica Stevenson, arguably 50% of the creative force behind the show, isn't really involved. And it always used to bug me, to be perfectly honest. People would say Shaun of the Dead, it's like Space the movie. It's if you like space, you got to watch it. And I don't know if I agree. I think they're tonally very different, actually.
I think you can definitely see. You can see from a directorial point of view, you can see that TV wasn't enough for Edgar Wright. Like the scope of TV was not big enough for him, and the things they do in Spaced is very cinematic.
It's the British equivalent of the Russo brothers directing Community, and now they're the biggest directors in Hollywood.
But Spaced also it has that density as well, you know, in the film references that it makes.
Yeah, completely.
And not just film references in the odd line of dialogue, but the way that they shoot it, with the directorial approach,
camera angles, weird little camera tricks and techniques. Yeah, completely. And one of the lazy things people always trot out, and again really annoys me, lazy journalism. People always go, Shaun of the Dead began life as a skit at the start of an episode of Spaced where Tim hallucinates fighting zombies. Did it? They did zombies in an episode of Spaced in like a kind of dream capacity. A brief gag at the start, and then it comes back a bit later in the episode. It's a very brief thing. That's just these guys like zombies. That's like if I did a sitcom and put some zombies in an episode and then wrote a zombie movie. It's not... Anyway, but then people say it's basically Space the movie, it's basically born out of that. They're very, very different products. I think Hot Fuzz, to be perfectly honest, is much closer to Spaced, tonally. I think the reason Shaun of the Dead feels like a bit of a different beast to me is that Shaun of the Dead is a horror comedy. It is a horror film that is also a comedy. It is a zombie movie in its own right. And again, it really annoys me that it's often called a spoof. I think we should point out this film came out within, I think, a fortnight of the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead remake, which arguably helped it, arguably did it a disservice. I think a lot of people thought, oh, it's a Dawn of the Dead spoof. The distributor actually had to hold the film back 2 weeks due to like legal complaints from Dawn of the Dead. So I think a lot of people go into it thinking, or certainly for a while, I think maybe the film's old enough now and well known enough that this isn't really an issue anymore. But for a while, people thought it was a silly spoof movie, and it's not.
At all, no.
There's maybe 3 brief moments that you could call spoofing something, and they're like a camera shot or something like that. There's not really any.
I think most of this stuff would fall under homage, more or less direct influence, paying tribute to the genre, and really using the genre tropes, turning them in on itself. So using this language that people understand, and doing it sometimes in a more overt way than normal, but certainly not parody.
But that's what I mean. Is it is very much a legitimate zombie film in its own right.
And it takes itself completely seriously, and over and above the comedy elements. Take the jokes out. It's a serious.
You take the jokes out, thing. It would be an above-average zombie film.
Yeah.
It might not be. Well, no, it wouldn't be the classic that it is, but it would be better than 90% of zombie films because they're mostly shite. And yeah, like you say, it takes everything seriously. It treats zombies with more seriousness than some of the serious films do, frankly. You could just about believe this is set in the same universe as George A. Romero's movies. And I think that's what they were going for. It's also worth bearing in mind, as we get into this film, that this was at the crest of the rebirth of the zombie genre. Now, like, you can't move for zombie films, zombie media, it's everywhere. But zombie films weren't really a thing. Like, we had trashy zombie movies. There were a few of them, but not hundreds up until, throughout the 80s. They kind of died off in about the late 80s. People often attribute that to Michael Jackson's Thriller turning them into a joke. We hadn't really had any zombie movies, really, for about 20, 25 years. And then suddenly we got 28 Days Later, the Dawn of the Dead remake, Shaun of the Dead, Resident Evil, all in very quick succession.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, to be honest, Shaun of the Dead's probably the most significant one in terms of solidifying it as a thing that's stuck around to this day. I mean, it really is. It's a modern classic. It's an endearing classic.
And I think its approach in terms of its knowledge of zombie films and its kind of acceptance of the genre means that it spends no time trying to explain what it is. It's not worried about what zombies are. Look, it's zombies coming to get us. That's all we need. And it means we can concentrate. And everybody knows what zombies are. It's like, and it doesn't feel it needs to explain it in universe. It kind of goes out of its way to not explain it, really. Because it doesn't matter.
You have a brief news report that explains that you have to remove the head or destroy the brain, which I think is basically a lift from Night of the Living Dead's dialogue on the news, to be
but
perfectly
even
honest.
that, there's lots of elements where it's just you're half hearing something on the radio or the TV, flicking through the channels, and which is all. I mean, that's straight up Night of the Living Dead stuff, isn't it? But also, it works here completely because it's giving you just a little bit of information.
It's one of the things I really, really think elevates this film, like takes it to a whole different level, is the sound design. It is one of the most incredible bits of sound design in a film I've ever seen. There is constant noise in the background, just car alarms going off, windows breaking, the odd scream. It's just this constant wall of sound in the background, and it adds so much atmosphere to the film. I think it's genuinely quite an effective zombie film in terms of scares. It's not to say I find it scary, but I think it's scarier than most zombie films manage to be. This is a legitimate horror film. You know, I think if you put this in front of a 7-year-old, they'd be terrified.
Yeah. It hits so many emotional moments as well, and quite nicely as well. Like Simon
really
Pegg
does.
doing some proper acting.
Think. I mean, I was going to say, should we get into the acting a bit? Because Simon Pegg showed a hell of a lot of promise as you know, an actor in this film. He does actually display quite a bit of range. He's obviously got the comedic side down, the likable everyman persona. But he does go to some nice emotional beats. And honestly, I don't know if he's really capitalised on that. I don't know if he's quite lived up to the potential that was displayed here. But he's fantastic in this film. He really is. I think it's probably his best work as an actor.
Yeah, the obvious moments to point to are when his stepfather, he has a kind of moment of sort of redemption, I guess, there with that whole thing, and then obviously
the car when he's dying,
with the mother as well, when the mother dies and he has to shoot her in the head because she's going to become a zombie. And I mean, they play it out quite a long time, that whole thing, and they do a whole Reservoir Dogs bit, but it works, and you end up with this moment where he has to shoot his mother, you know.
Oh no, come on, stop it. Come on, please, don't go. What are you doing? We have to deal with her?
Daffs, for Christ's sake.
She's going to come back? She's not going anywhere. Well, she'll change. She's my mum. She's a zombie. Don't say that!
Yeah, so Kate Ashfield, as a girlfriend, is Liz. She does a hell of a job. And there's so many times when it was just stuff going on and you know, and she just had tears in her eyes or something. You know, it was just like this nice, subtle stuff, and it never felt overblown.
She's good. Overshadowed, perhaps, by the rest of the cast. We have Lucy Davis. Lucy Davis! Hello!
Daffs, I don't want to be torn to pieces, and I'm sure if you really think about it, neither do you.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a big fan of Lucy Davis, to be honest, but she's fine.
Doesn't quite open her mouth all the way.
And I think she's playing it the way she's been asked to play it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, like what you're doing there.
Dylan Moran, perfectly cast as David. That is just finding the right role for an actor. Dylan Moran's not necessarily the greatest actor in the world. That's not to say he's bad.
I've seen him do some great stuff. It's like if you can harness him in the right place,
Exactly. We've got Peter Serafinowicz in a very functional role as Pete.
It's 4 in the funking morning!
It's Saturday!
No, it's not. It's funking Sunday.
And I've got to go to funking work in 4 funking hours because every other funker in my funking department is funking ill. Now can you see why I'm so funking angry?
Likeable presence.
Yeah,
Not
works
really...
perfect. And a good balance between being essentially the bad guy to the people we're with, but you totally understand where he's coming from.
If nothing else, he's really well cast in that he's a very tall man and therefore very intimidating, both as a human and a zombie.
Yeah.
We've got an early role, an early turn from Rafe Spall.
Yeah, fat Rafa Spall, yeah.
Yeah, before he went all Hollywood on us. Probably my favourite Rafe Spall performance, this, him as Noel. I think he's great in this. He's got so much personality about what he's doing.
Yeah.
We've got Bill Nighy.
Yes,
as
and
Philip.
One of the best Bill Nighy performances I've seen.
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
done some good stuff in his time.
Yeah, I love Bill Nighy, and I mean, this was the film that woke me up to him very much so.
Shaun wants to take us somewhere.
Don't be silly, I'm not going anywhere.
Well, maybe you should stay here. Wait for the doctor and I'll take Mum.
But you said the doctor wasn't coming.
You didn't call the doctor, did you?
Well, I thought we ought to be on the safe side.
I'm quite all right, Barbara. I ran it under a cold tap.
I really think...
We had our jabs when we went to the Isle of Wight.
But Philip...
It's a lot of overblown nonsense, a lot of drug nuts running wild.
Still, I should get Mum away, just in case they come back.
I'm not going anywhere without Philip.
Mum, look! How about that tea?
We have Penelope Wilton, another career best, I think, probably, as Barbara, Shaun's mum.
Yeah, and that's another one where
perfectly cast,
just nails it, and the relationship between the three of them, the stepdad, and he kind of resents the stepdad, but it's all just kind of so pointless.
Yeah,
and it feels very real.
Yeah,
and she's like the pacifist between them.
And last but not least, out of the main cast, I think, unless I've missed anyone, is Mr. Nick Frost in another career-defining performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's the character that Nick Frost can play. It's basically what he does, but it's so obviously written for him. And am I right? Nick Frost was just Simon Pegg's mate, and he wrote him into Spaced. Yeah, that's how he became an actor, right?
If I remember correctly, and if this is to be believed, they met in a restaurant when Nick Frost was waiting the tables and Simon Pegg was eating there. And one of them made like a Star Wars noise, did like a little robot noise, and the other one sort of completed the noise or something like that.
Yeah.
Hey, and you know what? Nick Frost as Mike in Spaced might be the best character. So, it's not like undeserved nepotism, is it?
No.
It's
but there is a sense in Spaced that he's a bit raw as an actor.
Yeah, completely.
But by this point, Shaun of the Dead, he's so comfortable what he's doing. Yes, he's playing a character that is written for him and is probably really playing to his strengths.
Very different to his role in Spaced, though. It has to be said. It's not like Shaun is more or less Tim from Space. There's not a world of difference there. Ed isn't Mike at all. It's a very different character.
In 1994, while on weekend manoeuvres in France, I commandeered a chieftain tank without the permission of my immediate superiors. I then attempted to invade Paris. However, en route, I stopped off at Disneyland, or Euro Disney as it was then called, and was subsequently apprehended on Space Mountain.
Like you say, it feels much more like it's maybe just a heightened version of Nick Frost. But yeah, he's great here. He really is. And there's undeniable, legitimate chemistry between him and Simon Pegg, which, goes a long way towards selling the film.
Yeah.
Why have we got to go to Lizzie's?
Because we do.
She dumped you.
I have to know if she's all right.
Why?
Because I love her.
All right, gay.
And yeah, just throughout the film, it's every bit of casting in this film is spot on. Even the extras, all the supporting artists are just so... They just look the part. They're so well placed.
And there's so many points in this where the zombies are centre stage, and they have to... You need people who can act zombie, not just extras. You need people who are going to give it what it needs.
another thing this film does remarkably well is it does a wonderful job of giving all the significant zombies some degree of story. Pretty much every extra we see in the film early on later comes back as a zombie version of that extra. So you've almost got these hundreds of little story arcs taking place just in the background, which is really cool.
In the build-up before the zombie stuff really kicks off, there's so much, every time you see Shaun's on the bus, and everyone who's on the bus is in a sort of zombified state, in what we would think in a sort of more realistic term that we would use it, and that's obviously something that's comes from the history of zombies. They're all pouring into the shopping mall because they're just working on instinct. All this idea of just trudge and going to work and just not really living a life, and it's the central point of Shaun's character arc. He's wasting his life. He's just going through life and going through the motions. And his girlfriend wants to achieve something more, and he doesn't even understand. And it all ties in together. It's great.
The music.
Yeah, lovely use of music.
The music's amazing in this film. It's largely a curated soundtrack, and the opening theme tune, I suppose, is a track called The Blue Wrath by You've got great music. You've got 2 Queen tracks. You've got all sorts of bits of horror movie music lifted from here and there, Tarantino style. You've got 3 songs by Ash. Do you know why we've got 3 songs by Ash, Alan?
Is it Edgar Wright's brother?
No. You're on the right lines, though.
I don't know. Ash were around a long time before Shaun of the Dead, though. They were well known.
Yeah.
In fact, I would argue they were probably well past their peak by 2004.
Well, it's the songs Meltdown, Orpheus, and Everybody's Happy Nowadays, the latter of which is a Buzzcocks cover. They were all donated to the film for free because it was made on quite a low budget, because Edgar Wright was shagging Charlotte Heatherly, the guitarist and backing vocalist of the group, and also sometimes songwriter. So there you go. Contacts.
It's not what you know, it's who you're shagging.
Exactly. Exactly that. The soundtrack CD, by the way, for this film, the actual soundtrack they released, is incredible. If you have a chance to listen to it, if you haven't listened to it, just find it, listen to it. Because it's not just a collection of 12, 13, 14, 15 songs from the film, with a bit of film score thrown in at the end. Should we kind of go through the film? Because I've made a whole load of notes here, and it's just going to be an easy way to kind of...
Yeah, I mean, I didn't make any notes. I just sort of watched it, and yeah, it was...
I couldn't stop making notes, Alan. I couldn't stop.
Well, that was it. It was almost too much. I decided just not to bother. There was too many things to kind of pick out. But yeah, let's hit the sort of main plot points and see how we go. All right. But this was my problem. I think we're just going to be going, oh, this bit was good, wasn't it?
Yeah. So basically, how does it start? You've got them in the pub, see people going around, and then we have the first sort of major scene, which is they're in the house, Shaun, Pete, and Ed, and Pete's sick of Ed. He's complaining about him. Right, so here's a perfect example of the writing in this film being just beautiful. Something they do throughout is repeated dialogue. Pretty much any line someone says to someone comes back again in one form or another later, but there's a really, really blatant example early on, which is when they're playing Tekken 2, and then Simon Pegg walks in, and he says,
"Hang on, listen, top left. I was going to say, reload? I'm on it. Sorry, shot." And
the exact same dialogue is repeated back to him when they have a gun behind the bar and they're shooting the zombies at the end of the film.
Top left! Reload! I'm on it!
shot.
Exactly. Yeah. There's quite. Yeah, like you say, there's a lot of that repeated dialogue. There's also the other big thing they do in terms of foreshadowing is they'll basically say what is going to happen.
Yeah, they map out the
know.
entire plot of the film early on in the pub after.
And a simple example is when Ed says about Pete, he says, "Oh, next time I see him, he's dead," and obviously next time you see him, he's a zombie. So, what about give us this more? There's a more detailed example.
All right. Well, so basically, Ed maps out the plan for the following day, and he says, "Right,
you know what we should do tomorrow? Keep drinking. We'll have a Bloody Mary first thing. Have a bite of the King's Head, couple of the Little Princess. We'll stagger back here. Bang! Back at the bar for Shaun. How's that for a slice of fried gold?
No.
Come on, man."
So obviously they keep drinking. They have a Bloody Mary first thing. There's a girl in the garden called Mary. That zombie, the first encounter they have with a zombie is...
that's the first one they have to deal with, and she's got
a literal
name tag
Bloody Mary.
Let us know that she's called Mary,
Yeah. Have a bite at the King's Head is... You have to get a bit metaphorical for that, but Philip, the king, arguably gets bitten when they go to pick up his mum.
Mm-hmm.
They pick up a couple at the Little Princess. They go around to Liz's flat and they pick up Dave and Diane along with her, who are a couple. Then they stagger back to the Winchester because they imitate zombies. They literally stagger on purpose to get there, and then they end up back at the bar for shots, firing the gun at the zombies.
Well, literally shots at the bar because they set it on fire and leave the shells there.
Well, that too, yeah. So I mean that. Every line of dialogue practically has got some element of that going on. And so they wake up the morning after. We've seen all these hints that zombies are happening around them, but they're oblivious to it. And then they wake up and it's like the apocalypse has hit. But they're in a sort of hungover daze, don't notice it. Gorgeous use of a single camera tracking shot. Twice.
Yeah, we get Shaun goes to the shops. It's all done in one sort of Steadicam shot. So we see him before and then after the zombie apocalypse, and we see the echoes of what we've seen before.
And that's it. It's completely mirrored both times. So the first time, for example, you have a one-armed man with a prosthetic fake arm, like under his suit, and then later on you see him lumbering down the road with an arm off, setting up. Arm off. Yeah, and then obviously he comes in through the house.
And I like that, just simple things that he's wearing a wedding suit, he's obviously dressed up for a wedding, and then so the next day he's still wearing it. It's immediately recognisable. It's not just a bloke in the street. And it's a simple thing, but it makes us go, okay, that's the same guy. Nice little touches like that.
Yeah, completely. One thing I really love that this film does very well is how it handles the zombies. There's no explanation given as to why they have happened, but the film does offer you, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, and that's all they need to do. Because if there was nothing, it might be a bit like, well, that's lazy, they couldn't come up with anything, bullshit. But the fact they kind of go, well, one newsreader thinks it's this, the newspapers think it's that. It's basically them saying, look, we could have picked any of these, and we're just not gonna, because the second we pick one, you can start saying, well, that's stupid. The sequence of them out and about is just beautifully done. These little brief flashes of just chaos going on around them is up there with... This is something I love in zombie movies in general, and I think some of these ones here are up there with the best of like serious zombie films. There's one shot in particular where you kind of see it's like a woman grabbing people running out of a house, and you just get like just a brief glimpse of it, but it's just a very, very disturbing image, I think. But beyond that, there's one of my favourite details in a film ever.
Yeah.
There is, for some, God knows why, that for some reason there is a lawnmower driving down the street with a severed arm holding onto it in the background of a shot just after they hit that guy and like take his legs off, cripple that zombie, and drive off down the street. If you look in the top right corner, you'll see it. Lawnmower driving down the street. Obviously a detail they put there on purpose, but probably more effort than... I don't know if they were planning to do more with it at one point or what. It's a very weird thing to do. But I love it. I love that it's there.
And there's so much going on in these whole bits, and it's so frantic while they're in the car, and then they just use these techniques to make it more chaotic. Like there's 7 of them in the car or whatever, and Ed's put this like harsh music on. Everyone's trying to talk over each other. Quick cut editing. He keeps running into people, so you got this people bouncing off the car. It's just frenetic and building and building.
Oh man,
that's
the
whole thing
cinematography
come
and the
together.
editing in this film are both outstanding. Frank, like basically, one of the things I was going to complain about, this film was completely overlooked at the likes of the BAFTAs, and I think it's fucking disgusting, honestly, because this has stood the test of time. Who still talks about atonement? No one gives a fuck. It's shit. No one cares.
Oh, I like Atonement.
Well, it's shit. You're wrong.
Let's not go too far.
but
yeah,
you know what I mean?
It is odd. This was a
fucking critically acclaimed British film.
Yeah, it did
came
well
out
at the
of
time as well.
nowhere.
It's not like it's had a cult following.
It was a huge success financially as well, based on the budget. It broke America to a degree in a way British films don't really do. It deserved to be in the conversation at the BAFTAs, and frankly, it deserved Best Picture nomination, if not a win. But I'm not surprised it didn't get there. But at least acknowledge it on a technical front. The editing is outstanding. The cinematography is fantastic. The score is brilliant. The writing, this is one of the finest screenplays ever written. And all it got at the BAFTAs was a Best Newcomer nod. Not even a win, I think. Or was it a win? I think it was just a nomination for Naira Parks, the producer, who hadn't produced a feature film before. So it's just a shame, isn't it? The film was also nominated for Best British Film, but it didn't win.
Well, what won? Atonement?
Let me look it up. So, Best British Film. My Summer of Love beat it. Have you ever heard of that?
What the fuck is that?
What is My Summer of Love? I've never heard.
No, seriously though, what is it? Because I don't know.
I've looked. Well, it's whatever it is. It's got 6.8 on IMDb.
Oh, classic.
It's directed by someone called Paul Polikowski.
A beautiful British name.
Set in the Yorkshire countryside, starring Natalie Press, Emily Blunt, Paddy Considine.
Do you know what? This does look like something I would like.
Well,
because it's about it's like a coming of age,
Yeah.
Gritty northern drama. I like that.
It was nominated alongside Dead Man's Shoes. Fair enough. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah, fine. And Vera Drake, which I haven't seen but is meant to be good. Mike Leigh, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm reading My Summer of Love. It's about 2 teenage girls who discover each other. I really want to see this film. Over the summer, the 2 young women discover they have much to teach one another and much to explore together. Ooh. Yeah, definitely watching that. Putting that on my watch list.
Oh, dear.
Anyway.
So anyway, then there's a prolonged sequence of them on foot, walking through these kind of back gardens and alleyways to get to the pub.
But that's a really nice moment as well when they lose the car. So they're driving around and they're kind of safe in the car. And so you have to create a danger in the car. They lose that, and then to have these different levels where they can fight them off, they can run away, and now they have to blend in. It's like all these different elements of this plot, of different ways to confront the zombies, basically.
Yeah,
and I think that's it gives it more flavour. It's not just a big prolonged action sequence. It keeps, and they get a lot of comedy out of it, obviously.
Yeah. The one thing I don't like in the film, the one part of the film I'm not a fan of, the zombies are about to get them all because they've kind of blown their cover because David did do the right thing and smashed the window with a bin. And then Shaun just runs through the crowd of zombies like, hey, over here, come and get me, and just walks straight through them, basically, and they don't kill him. Not a big fan of that. I feel like they could have filmed it slightly differently, done it a bit better.
So he got away at an angle that they're not.
Yeah, it just makes the zombies a bit less of a threat than I think they have been presented as and later are and sort of need to be. If you can just run through them, and as long as you're quick enough, it doesn't quite. I'm not a fan of it, but that is my one complaint about the entire film. So fair play to him. And I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there were like budgetary issues with that, and they wanted to do it one way, and they just didn't quite have the set to work with. And yeah, then what happens? They go into the pub. It's a classic sort of zombie siege third act. It all goes to shit. The zombies get in. Everyone gets eaten.
If anything, the whole kind of fight, big sort of siege fight at the end, goes on a bit long for me. I could have. Lost 5 minutes. That would have been enough. I mean, I'm being very nitpicky, I guess, but I've never been taken with just action stuff. When it just comes down to the fighting, I'm not bothered.
I think this film might be the most clear-cut manifestation of the, dare I say, quite male fantasy of the zombie apocalypse. Dawn of the Dead flirted with this, the original Dawn of the Dead, but the idea of zombies as a positive thing, because it's kind of this fantasy. You're in a dead-end job, your life's going nowhere, you're kind of in a rut. Instead of having to turn your life around properly, zombie apocalypse happens, and you just have to kind of man up and take charge of very simple problems, which are stay alive, keep other people from dying. I think it's the most clear-cut manifestation of that weird, dark fetishization of the zombie apocalypse or apocalyptic fiction in general.
It's like when in a lot of things, the everyday man becomes the hero.
Yeah,
and it's like it's a quick fix, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. But it's good because that is what the film's all about. It's not like it's not grappling with it.
And I like the bit where Liz, like very near the end, like he refers to her as his girlfriend, and she was like, "What do you think I'm going to get back together with you just because you've saved everybody or whatever it was?" And he's like, "Oh well, Yeah. So I like that it doesn't quite let him have the validation for it. But at the same time, he has proved himself. The whole point is that he never sort of gets off his ass and does anything, but he does. He goes out of his way to go and help Liz and his mother. He takes control of the situation over and over again. He becomes the leader. He becomes the person that they're looking to for control and stability.
He has a very solid arc as a character. It's a very clear, gradual growth.
And a nice handling of character in terms when you just talk about gender. Because it definitely does not, you don't get the sense of like the men are saving the day. Yes, Shaun does as the hero, but then Liz is just as capable as him.
And David's a fucking bumbling buffoon who causes all sorts of trouble for them, but then loses the plot in the heat of the moment and also causes trouble. Everyone's kind of... Ed is, a manifestation of a lot of toxic masculinity and things like that, arguably, but then he's also got a lot of good about him, and he's willing to sacrifice himself and die at the end in order to help the other to escape and things like that. I think everyone in this film's very nicely drawn character, far beyond what they needed to be for a zombie comedy, frankly.
And Ed really nails that balance. It's like Bender in Futurama of being a really quite a nasty piece of work a lot of the time, and like doing things that could really seriously get people into a lot of trouble, but still being completely lovable. And it's a difficult balance to pull off.
But you're right. They really, really do nail it. Right. Do you want to play a little Shaun of the Dead quiz, Alan?
I certainly do.
All right. I will give you a point, Alan, for every single cameo you can name in this film.
Okay, well, my first thought is where they do the crossover with the sort of like-for-like, Bizarro World.
Yeah, Yvonne's crew of people.
Yeah, so it's Martin Freeman.
Martin Freeman. All right, go on, that's 1 point. Martin Freeman plays Yvonne's boyfriend, the sort of wacko Bizarro World Liz.
Yeah, and it's Reece Shearsmith.
Yeah, Reece Shearsmith, perfectly cast as the alternate David.
Tamsin Gregg.
Yeah, the alternate Diane. Bit of
Matt
an
Lucas.
Outside choice, that one, but yeah. Matt Lucas with a weird wig on as the alternate Ed.
Well, Tamsin Gregg would have been working with Dylan Moran on Black Books at the time, I guess.
Well, you know what the idea of this whole scene was? I don't think it quite plays the way they intended it, honestly, but the idea, the joke was that they'd stumbled upon a better film. I mean, the joke, I think as it plays, it's like they've stumbled upon a better team that kind of has their shit together. And, you know, that kind of plays when she's like, oh, you're going to the pub, really? You know, it's kind of like, oh, good luck. And the idea is they've survived at the end, even though you only see Yvonne. But the joke was that they were like a bigger budget, better version of this film with a better cast. But it hasn't really played out because Simon Pegg's now an A-list Hollywood star. Nick Frost's considerably bigger in terms of films than Matt Lucas, I think. Well, no, maybe they're comparable, but Tamsin Gregg's had a more fruitful career than Lucy Davis. Oh, no, that's a joke, isn't it?
No, that works.
Yeah. But it doesn't quite work the way they intended, I think.
Yeah, to make that joke work, it has to be like bloody Tom Cruise or that's sort of, maybe a British sort of equivalent, but it has to be some big names.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
you've got one left in that little group.
So the woman who plays the mother, I can't think off the top of my head. My guess would be it's the woman who is the landlady in space.
Yes, it is Julia Deakin, who plays.
Oh wow! That wasn't. I went for the obvious choice.
Yeah, no, that's there. All right. Who else?
Other cameos.
Yes. Should we exclude newsreaders and Trisha and people like that from the equation because they're too.
They're kind of yeah. I mean, they're playing themselves. It's not quite the same thing.
Yeah. So let's see if we take everyone playing themselves out of the equation.
Vernon Kay.
Vernon Kay. Yeah. Trisha, Krishnan Guru Murphy, Carol Barnes, Rob Butler, Jeremy Thompson. I think that's them. So we've also got. Some other news reporter voices who are not actual news reporters.
Oh, really?
We've also got Mark Gatiss, who is the guy talking about news of a downed satellite, blah, 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 quite early on. Mm-hmm. We also have Julia Davis, who is the female news reporter talking about a sign of a coming apocalypse, blah, 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 when they first go out to the car. David Walliams is the news reporter at one point. I'm not sure which one, but he is apparently a voice in the film. Then we have a whole load of familiar faces as actual zombies in the film.
I think Joe Cornish.
Joe Cornish, yeah, he's a zombie at the end of the film. He gets shot by the army when they come in.
Does that mean that Adam Buxton is one as well?
No, but you're on the right lines.
Garth
Jennings.
What's his face? Jennings, that's it.
Yeah. He plays one of the zombies in the It's a Knockout thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, listeners, if you don't know who Garth Jennings is, he's a film director, much like Joe Cornish now,
Son of Rambo?
Yeah, Son of Rambo, Sin.
Were they at school together or something?
Yeah, they're really good.
Oh, is Louis Theroux there?
Louis Theroux's mates with them as well. No, he's not, sadly.
Yeah.
Apparently, I don't know where he is, but apparently Russell Howard's in there as a zombie. We've also got Paul Kaye very prominently as a zombie. Did you spot him?
I didn't, but I did see earlier when we were talking about Edgar Wright that he'd worked on Dennis Pennis.
Yeah,
in his younger days.
Yeah,
so
he's and he was in Spaced as well. Paul Kaye, right?
So there's not much more else to say, is there? I mean,
sequels.
We think it's amazing.
Basically, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Do you want to rate it before we do?
Rate it out of 10.
Go on then.
Ding dong.
Don't answer the door.
Knocking.
Who is it?
Yeah, baby! Oh no, it's John Major. Yeah, it's a 10 out of 10 for me. That was Austin Powers making his contractual obligated appearance.
Yeah, I mean, we've set out pretty earlier. I think this is an absolutely perfect film. It's a sublime example of the art and craftsmanship of filmmaking, and I give it a 10 out of 10.
Holy shit! That makes this our first ever perfect 10 on the show. There's only 2 of us today, so I think if Calvin was here, he'd be bringing the score down a bit. But wow, there was talk of a sequel to this film.
Really?
Yeah, there was a lot of joking about, and I really don't think it was ever anything more than Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright having a laugh in interviews, but a lot of news outlets ran with it like it was significant. They kept talking about making From Dusk Till Shaun, which was a proposed sequel about the characters dealing with vampires. And that's kind of as far as they ever got with it. And obviously that would be a terrible idea because half the cast's dead. It would really break the reality of the world that we're given to be told, well, vampires exist as well. Because that takes it into a kind of fantasy direction rather than sci-fi. It takes away from the... Do you not think it takes away from the idea of it being the real world and then this thing happens?
Yeah, yes, but I mean, if you were going to embrace it and just go for it, you'd have to establish. You'd have to just take Shaun and have every other character new. You know,
well, Shaun and Liz maybe, but
maybe Liz
and Zombie Ed, like the talking animal companion, basically.
But you couldn't. But the thing is, you couldn't have Zombie Ed as a little sort of cameo at the beginning, but then you can't have him along for the whole journey because it's too cumbersome.
Well, I say I don't think they were ever serious.
Well, it sounds like it was just a joke.
Yeah. But they did talk about it a lot. They really like that name. And I don't get why, because the obvious name for a sequel is Night of the Living Ed.
Yeah.
Which is, I think that should be our sequel pitch. They had one other sequel idea, which they spoke about, which I think got a lot more traction, but never went anywhere. I don't think it ever got any serious traction, but it certainly sounded a lot more doable. And it's, if they ever do turn around and decide to make a sequel to this film, I think this will be what they do. They did discuss the idea of doing a sort of parallel film following Yvonne and her group of survivors and seeing what they got up to at the same time, which would basically just be another comedy with zombies, which is great. That's fine. Yeah. That's probably the best way to do it.
Certainly something that doesn't need a sequel.
Well, that's it. It's such a standalone thing. And I mean, Hot Fuzz is basically the sequel, and I'm glad that's the way they went with it. Even at the time, I didn't want them to do a sequel. I just wanted them to kind of do another film with, and that's thankfully what they did. They did Hot Fuzz. But let's say we had to do a sequel, Alan. It's called Night of the Living Ed. That's set in stone. That's too good to pass up.
Okay, so we have to work around the title then.
Night of the Living Ed.
So it has to be Ed coming back to life then.
Well, he's a zombie already, isn't he? So it's got to feature Zombie Ed in it. That's what you need.
But what if they find a cure for him?
Could you do? Would zombies be would aliens be too far? Because you could tie that in. You could be like, well, look, aliens made the zombies.
How would you make that? Why would you bring them in anyway?
I don't know. Well,
where are you going with this?
I'm just trying to think of what you could do to... Because the government's got it under control, so it doesn't really work that they just have another outbreak. Unless the zombie virus evolved and they had to deal with running zombies, but I don't
that's it. You have Night of the Living Ed. So Ed's living in the shed, and he escapes. And so the film is about Simon Pegg and Liz, maybe, like trying to catch him, and he keeps getting into shenanigans. But he's like a dog with no collar. If they catch him, they put him in the pound.
It's like fucking Homeward Bound with a zombie. You could do a total boy and his dog film with Simon Pegg as Shaun, because he's not meant to have a zombie as a pet, is he? Maybe Ed's going to be exterminated.
He's off the grid. He's not supposed to be there.
Yeah, they're going to exterminate all the zombies. They're too much of a liability.
Keep biting people at the supermarket.
Yeah, and he has to go on the run to like set him free in the uncontained like zombie zone. Maybe there's just some wilderness that they've just given up on, like the Peak District. It's just like, or the Quantox near London. Somewhere they've just gone like, fuck it, we can't clean that.
Do you know what? That would actually make a genuine, like, good little short film that I could see them making.
Yeah.
Like as a DVD extra or something, where they just have him driving him out and he's like ushering him off, and then he has to be nasty to him to make him run away. And there's like tear rolling down his cheek.
They did do a kind of Shaun of the Dead zombie-esque DVD feature thing. Do you know about this? Danger... I think it was called Danger 50,000 Zombies or something like that.
Or was that a take on Nick Frost's TV thing?
Yeah, it was. It was a DVD special feature for that TV show. And it was made, you know, these were coming out the height of DVD special features being worthwhile because people were buying DVDs just for special features.
Yeah.
So Simon Pegg and Nick Frost got together and just presumably of an afternoon, presumably largely improvised, just filmed a spoof Channel 5 documentary thing about zombies. And it was Nick Frost presenting. I'm here with the scientist. I think he's called Russell Fell, and it's Simon Pegg just doing a weird voice. I think he was doing an Australian accent, going, "Oh well, mate, zombies. You got to watch out for them, mate." So there you go. Thanks, patrons, for voting that we do this film.
Patreon.com/Dim Returns.
I'm really digging how much the patrons are like making me. They're like choosing my favourite films for me, just ticking them off so I don't have to choose them. Because I think the way we're going with this year's Halloween episode, I think it's going to happen again. So
what's the favourite looking like at the moment?
Well, right now it's between I Am Legend and The Thing. But it could all change.
See, the good thing is I hate everything, so it's always the same to me. I don't care. Although this is finally we've done something good.
Yeah,
but I haven't given many 10s on it here, have I?
I don't know if you've ever given a 10 before.
Did I give Sixth Sense a 10? Maybe.
Oh, you did. Yeah, you did.
I think there's probably one or two sneaked in.
Alien, you probably gave a 10.
Yeah, Alien, I did. Yeah,
but wow, a first for Diminishing Returns. And I don't expect this to last because this is Alan, bear in mind. And I think he's going to get progressively less enthusiastic about these films as we go on.
Oh, the next two?
Yeah.
We'll see. Let's not give anything away.
Well, thanks for joining us. That is how to evade and kill zombies. I'd like to thank my guest for today from the Canberra Institute, Dr. Russell Fell. Russell, thank you.
My pleasure, Thundernuts. Anytime.
Well, why don't we go?
All right. Why don't we head off? I know there's a couple of stragglers in the woods. We could always go and pop a couple of them.
Yeah.
Or do whatever, really. I mean, whatever you feel like. I'm always open to new ideas. I have been since I was a girl.
It's not very often you find a person like you.
Do you mean that?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I've had such a great day today. I never thought I'd find a guy that had the same kind of interest in pipe smoking and killing.
I would like a look at your pipe.
I do have a pipe, but unfortunately I've had to shelve it.
I just enjoyed it today. I enjoyed everything about it.
It was great fun, wasn't it? It was lovely to come to England and meet a beauty like you.